In most sports, there are always debates about who is the greatest of all time. Baseball can argue about Babe Ruth versus Willie Mays. Basketball can argue about LeBron James and Michael Jordan. However, there's one sport where there is absolutely, positively no doubt who is the greatest of all time. When it comes to Greco Roman wrestling, there is one name that unquestionably stands above all others: Aleksandr Karelin. Learn more about the GOAT of wrestling on this episode of Everything Everywhere Daily. This episode is sponsored by ScottyVest. It's the 21st century. All of us have gear we carry around with us. You're probably listening to this podcast on some form of portable device. We have smartphones, tablets, e-readers, wireless earbuds, and then maybe even a portable battery and a cable to charge everything. ScottyVest solves your gear problems by providing jackets and clothing with extra pockets to carry all of your gear. I've even used my ScottyVest jacket in lieu of a camera bag when I've been traveling. You can get 15% off your next order by going to ScottyVest.com and using the coupon code EverythingEverywhere, all one word, at checkout. The story of Aleksandr Karelin sounds like it's made up. Born in the Siberian town of Novosibirsk in 1965, Aleksandr came into the world making a big impression. Literally. His birth weight was 5.5 kilograms or 12 pounds. He was a big kid growing up who excelled at every sport he tried. Soon after he began wrestling, he was big enough to compete at the super heavyweight level, which is where he stayed his entire life. At the age of 14, he began training with his coach, Viktor Kuzanov, who remained his coach his entire life. By the time he started wrestling competitively the next year, he developed an interesting trait. He didn't lose. Ever. In 1985, he won the World Junior Championship. In 1986, he won the Junior European Championship. In 1987, he won the World Junior Championship again. His first ever loss came at the 1987 Soviet National Championships, where he lost to reigning champion Igor Rostorowski by 1 point. The next year, he beat him at the National Championships while recovering from the flu and had a concussion. After this first loss, his legend began to grow. His training regime was the stuff of fables. This madman from Siberia would run through the woods with a log on his back. He would row down rivers. When asked who his greatest opponent was, he replied, "My refrigerator," because he would bear hug a refrigerator and then carry it up 8 flights of stairs in his apartment building. One of his nicknames, along with the obvious Alexander the Great, was the Experiment. He earned the nickname because people were sure he had to have been using performance-enhancing drugs because of his success. When he was asked about it, he replied, quote, "No one can completely believe that I'm natural. The most important drug is to train like a madman. Really like a madman. The people who accuse me are those who have never trained once in their life like I train every day of my life." Unquote. His signature move was called the Karelian Slam, where he would literally pick up his opponents, often weighing 300 pounds or 135 kilograms, and throw them to the mat. The move was awarded 5 points, which were the most possible in the sport. It was a move that was often performed in lower weight classes, but almost never seen at the super heavyweight level because of the strength required. This is the sort of thing you would normally see in professional wrestling, but Karelin performed it over 800 times in competition. With his 1987 loss, he started an incredible winning streak. He won the World Championship 9 times from 1989 to 1999. He won the Wrestling World Cup twice. He won the European Championship 12 times. Biggest of all, he won the Olympic gold medal in men's Greco Roman wrestling in the super heavyweight division in 1988, 1992, and 1996. Not only was he the first 3-time gold medalist in the sport, but he also became the first person to ever win medals for 3 different Olympic teams. In 1988, he competed for the Soviet Union. In 1992, he competed for the Unified Team, which was the team they threw together after the Soviet Union fell apart, but the remaining countries hadn't created Olympic teams yet. And then in 1996, he competed for Russia. At each one of those Olympics, he was also the flag bearer for the team in the opening ceremony. Even holding the flag was a feat of strength for him, as he held the flag outright with one hand. Just try doing that once. Coming into the 2000 Olympics in Sydney, he was the overwhelming favorite to win a fourth gold medal. He was on a 13-year winning streak, dating back to his only defeat in 1987. In fact, over the previous 6 years, not a single point was scored against him in competition. He was completely and absolutely dominant. Going into the gold medal match at Sydney, his lifetime record was 887 wins and 1 loss. The gold medal match was to be his final match as a competitor, as he decided to retire afterward. His opponent was American Rulon Gardner. Gardner was a good wrestler, good enough to make it to the gold medal round at the Olympics, but he was no Aleksandr Karelin. No one was. During the match, Karelin looked dispirited. He wasn't the angry madman that people were used to. Gardner stunned the crowd by scoring a single point against Karelin, the first time anyone had scored a point in 6 years. Gardner held on to win by a score of 1-0. His last match ever, and for the first time in 13 years, Karelin had lost. While it would have been a storybook ending, it really didn't change his legacy. He was voted the greatest Greco Roman wrestler of the 20th century by the International Federation of Associated Wrestling Styles. He was inducted into the International Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2003, and he was also named a Hero of Russia. The impression you might have been given was that Aleksandr Karelin is a brute or a musclehead, but nothing could be further from the truth. He came from a family of intellectuals who wound up in Siberia because they were exiled there by Stalin. He himself earned a PhD and a law degree, and was elected to the Russian Duma. To this day, Karelin had a hard time talking about his loss at the 2000 Olympics. It was a black mark on an otherwise perfect career. Despite losing his match, Aleksandr Karelin will go down as amateur wrestling's GOAT, the greatest of all time. Executive producer of Everything Everywhere Daily is James Makala. Special thanks to everyone who supports the show over on Patreon. Please remember to leave a review over on Apple Podcasts. Even a simple review can really help the show get discovered in the sea of other podcasts that are out there.